Hey everybody. So today we're gonna have two videos, possibly three, but probably just two. I don't know. I'm teetering on the fence of a third video, but who knows? But we're gonna have two videos. So you're probably wondering what the topics are gonna be. Well, they're both about Resident Evil. Wait a minute, I know what you're thinking. Oh God, more Resident Evil 7. No, we're actually not going to talk about Resident Evil 7. I want to talk about some positivity for once and some things I like about the Resident Evil franchise. So you can already see the title of this video. No, wait, titles are down there now, aren't they? I still haven't gotten used to that. It's really weird to me that the titles are down there now as opposed to up there. It's just very discombobulated. Anywho, you can see the title of this video, and I'll elaborate on that in just a little bit. And the next video, for one of you who's probably wondering, yes, Omar, I'm finally going to do a permutation of that video you requested. So, for future reference, if anybody ever's like, I think Brett should talk about this, go ahead and ask me, and I'll say yay or nay. And if I do say, hey, that sounds like a good idea, I'll talk about that. Just understand, your idea that you just presented to me may not necessarily go to the top of the roster of ideas I want to talk about. There's a lot of shit I do decide to talk about, and your shit might be somewhere in the list. So don't pester me about it. It's fucking annoying when I have to hear several times, hey Brett, are you going to make that video? I said I'd make it. Calm your tits. Anywho, what are we talking about today? We're talking about the Resident Evil movies, which I'm actually a really big fan of. No. I know what you're thinking. We're not talking about Paul's movies. We're not talking about Milo Jovovich and Alice and, all that shit. We're actually talking about these movies. Degeneration and Damnation. If you've never heard of these movies, I really recommend that instead of watching my video, you go check them out. They're available for very cheap on Amazon. I'm sure you could probably watch them for free somewhere on the internet. Go watch them. Resident Evil Degeneration, the first one, and Resident Evil Damnation, the second one. Why do I feel like talking about these movies? Well, it was recently brought to my attention by my buddy Adam Buskirk that they're making a third Resident Evil movie called Resident Evil Vendetta, which I'm kind of disappointed with the name because I thought they'd continue with the D names. I mean, you could name it Resident Evil Determination or something. I don't know, whatever. But Resident Evil Vendetta, and I'm actually really excited for that. I hear it's supposed to bridge the gap between Resident Evil 6 and Resident Evil 7, but I'm still really excited for that because I love these Resident Evil CG movies. Again, if you haven't seen them, go watch them because I'm going to talk about them and there's going to be some spoilerish content. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Degeneration, and I really, really enjoy this movie. First and foremost, there are two heroes, sort of. This movie stars Leon and Claire, and it's actually really interesting because it takes place, at least the first half of it takes place in an environment we haven't seen before in Resident Evil, an airport. So, just to give you like the Cliff's Notes of it. It's taking place after several incidents, many bio outbreaks. I'm not entirely sure where it fits into the timeline. I want to say it's after Resident Evil 4 because Leon is his special secret agent self, but I don't know if it's after Resident Evil 4. I think it may take place before Resident Evil 4, but again, I'm not entirely sure. Claire Redfield has not yet joined TerraSave, which if you played Resident Evil Revelations 2, you know what TerraSave is. But it stars these two characters, and it takes place, at least the first half of it, in an airport. The second chapter of it takes place at I think a Will Pharma facility. Anywho, the movie has excellent pacing. One of the things I love the most about it is the atmosphere that they bring in the airport section. Alright, so let me just break it down for you real quick. Claire is with this little girl. She's on some sort of escort thing. I don't know what the fuck she's doing. I have really no idea what she's actually doing. But she's with this little girl, trying to find the little girl's mommy. Like, the little girl's not lost. She's with Claire, but they're at the airport waiting to find mommy. And what happens is, somewhere off in the distance, there's an airplane coming towards the airport that just so happened to have an infected human on it. He dies, turns, the whole fucking plane just gets infected. And what you have is this really frightening scene, especially, for Americans in post 9/11 world. This very frightening scene where the plane crashes into the airport. And this next part can either be funny or it can be scary depending on how you look at it. I can't help but giggle a little bit because I find dark humor really entertaining. But there's this part where Claire looks up at this wreckage. The entire airport is just annihilated. There's rubble and debris everywhere, and she can see the plane. And the door of the plane opens, and then the infected start walking out and falling over, and there's this loud clunk every time they hit the ground. And I find it funny, but you can also find it very scary. And you know, for Claire, it's got to be a horrifying situation because I mean, she survived Raccoon City. How would you feel if you survived this horrible, horrible incident with these infected monsters, and next thing you know, that shit's just thrown back into your life? So I find that scene very entertaining. And of course, what happens is, you know, they try to flee from the infected start devouring people, and things like that happen. And then it cuts to a special group of, I guess, SWAT members or whatever. They're outside the airport. They're preparing for an infiltration mission because Claire just happens to be hunkered down with a politician, which that's another thing that Resident Evil Degeneration does that I think is really cool. It brings in the politics. There are certain aspects of politics in later Resident Evil games, but you know, you never got to see the political side of it. I went to do that jump cut and it just kind of slid over. What I mean is, there's a very interesting thing brought up at the beginning of the film with protest and things. You know, people are aware of the zombies. And I would never protest like this because it would seem really insensitive to somebody whose grandma got turned into a zombie. But you see people protesting with the zombie masks and shit like that. And it's really interesting to me. But she's hunkered down with this politician, and they want to go in and save people and get the politician out, who's kind of a dick. I don't like him. But what happens next? Leon shows up. And I think that this next section of the movie is the absolute best part of the movie. When Leon and the small team of SWAT people infiltrate the airport, it makes me want a Resident Evil game in an airport, because there's so much atmosphere and so much tension in this moment, because you know shit's gonna hit the fan. It always does. But you're not entirely sure when it's going to hit the fan. And they're wandering around a very dark, very bleak, very seemingly abandoned airport. And it's just perfect pacing. And when they finally come across the infected, it's good. The movie has its fair share of action, but none of it reaches Paul levels of ridiculousness. Everything that's actiony seems pretty grounded until about the second half, when some really insane shit starts happening. But yeah, the first half of this movie has great fucking pacing. If I can say something positive for a moment about Paul's movies, I understand this is going to freak some people out. I don't like his movies at all. But if I had to say the one that angers me the least, or the one that is the best, it would be the first Resident Evil movie. And the reason I say that is because in the beginning of the first Resident Evil movie, not where Mila wakes up naked in the shower and it's boring for 15 minutes, the part where she runs into the STARS team, whoever those guys are, I'm betting they're Umbrella operatives. Anywho, the moment when she runs into the soldier guys and they start going down into the hive, I think that part of the movie has genuinely good pacing. It has a good rate of things happening. And you know, there's all these different sections where they're wandering around and the hive is locked down, so you don't know where the infected are. You again know shit's gonna hit the fan, but you're not sure when. I remember that one part where they walk up to the glass wall with there's the dead lady floating in the water. And if I had directed that scene, obviously you know she's gonna reanimate, but I would never have done anything like she opens her eyes or grabs the thing. I would have just had her dead, floating. And then I would have cut to something else, because I mean, you know shit's gonna hit the fan. But it's not a jump scare, and it's not entertaining, and it makes us all groan. So I don't know why he did it, but I like the beginning of that movie a lot. Like up until the point where Michelle Rodriguez gets bit by the infected and it turns into a blast fest, I think it's really good. Even after it turns into a blast fest, it's still pretty intense. I think one of my favorite scenes besides that one in the movie is where the dude gets yanked into the elevator with all the infected. That's pretty fucking cool. But I'm not going to gush about that movie too much. When it comes down to it, the beginning of this one is really good. And the second half of it is a mixed bag for me. My biggest problem with Resident Evil Degeneration is the heroes, mostly. I'm going to talk about the second act, but I need to get this off my chest. I love Leon. Don't get me wrong. Leon's great. He's dashing and brave, and he's capable, and he's funny. He approaches everything with this B-horror camp attitude. I mean, in the first Resident Evil that he was in, Resident Evil 2, yeah, it's understandable that he's scared, but every single thing Leon's been in since, he's always had this fucking attitude about it. In Resident Evil 4, he was making jokes at giant monsters, okay? He was, cracking, one-liners left and right, hasta luego. He has this attitude about him, and I love him as a character. But I also like Claire. And the problem I have with Degeneration is its second half drops Claire entirely. It really does. She's not actually in this movie a whole lot now that I think about it. And that's a big problem for me. Because I'm not going to go on to this semi-feminist rant or something. Fuck feminists. But when it comes down to it, Resident Evil has a strong plethora of female video game characters. They're very capable. They're intelligent. They're not sex icons. They're badass chicks that get through these situations in their own special way. And I don't like that the movie just kind of shuffles Claire out to the side. It's annoying to me because I thought Claire was equal to Leon. I mean, in Resident Evil 2, it's not, Leon going to save Claire. No, it's do you want to play this game as Leon or Claire? And I thought that the movie would have a dichotomy like that, but it really doesn't. The second half of the film stars mostly Leon and the female character from the squad he infiltrated the airport with. And the second half of it takes place at the Will Pharma facility, which has been attacked by another bio-outbreak terrorism incident. It's soon learned that the situation is the female character that's with Leon, that was with the infiltration team, her brother is the one who has unleashed this new outbreak. And he's gone to the Will Pharma place to attack it as well. And it drops Claire completely for a while there. I mean, she'll pop up every once in a while, but she doesn't really show up again until the end of the movie. And that bothered me so much because Claire is just as good a hero as Leon. That's one of the reasons I like Revelations 2 so much, is I get to experience Claire again. Leon's been in Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 6. Claire has been in Resident Evil 2, Code Veronica, and Revelations 2. I think they have a pretty equal split of games, but when it came to the movie outing, she was just not given the due she deserves, and that bothers me quite a bit. I'm going to quit bitching about Claire, but I hate that they pushed her out of the narrative as much as they did, when I think she is just as good a hero as Leon. But the second half of the film takes place at the Will Pharma location, and this is the part that gets a little bit, it jumps the shark a little bit, but it's so fucking cool. Because, I mean, both of these movies, I haven't talked about Damnation at all, both of these movies feel like Resident Evil 2 movies. And this one really emphasizes it because guess what shows up? Fucking G. Now, if you're not a Resident Evil fan, you probably don't know what the hell G is. G is a nightmare personified, I want to say. I don't know what that dog is flipping out about. Give me a second. I don't know if y'all can hear it. Something's wrong with that fucking dog. Anywho, G is nightmare personified. If you have any idea about the Resident Evil series, then you know what the T-virus is, or you should know what the T-virus is. The T-virus is a bioengineered virus that's used to create monsters, and should it happen to leak and infect people it's not supposed to infect, you get zombies. The zombies never really felt like they were any type of bioweapon. But T-virus, the T stands for tyrant, and tyrants, of course, are these big humanoid monstrosities that are basically the pinnacle of what you can create with the T-virus. Like, when you use the T-virus, you're trying to get a tyrant. You get all these other weird things that you can make, but you want a tyrant because that's the best thing you can make. Let me compare it to a game that I know a lot of you have played. Remember Final Fantasy VII? Remember Chocobo breeding? You get a bunch of greens and blues and blacks, but you're trying to go for the gold, right? The gold is the tyrant. It's the pinnacle of what you can create with the T-virus. However, the G-virus is more powerful than the T-virus. And anything that's made with G is frightening. If you haven't played Resident Evil 2, then you just simply don't know. And that's why I hope they don't fuck up the Resident Evil 2 remake. I hope that it plays like the Resident Evil 1 remake. But I cannot wait to see Birkin in pretty graphics turn into the nightmare that is G's final form. God, that's gonna be good. Anywho, there's a G monster in this one. And spoilers again, you know, I'm talking about all this stuff, but yeah, her brother turns himself into a G monster. And the thing about this G monster is its mutation is a little bit more rapid. Because, of course, it's a movie and it's lasts 30 minutes, so you gotta have the climactic action scene. But, yeah, it's got the big eyeball, and it's a fucking monster. It's monstrous. And, he mutates very rapidly. He spends a little while as the humanoid with the big arm and the eyeball, and then he just goes full on G. And he never mutates further than that. He only has 2 forms. But the action scenes at the end are ridiculous, as you would expect them to be. And the G monster is just so ridiculously powerful. But the movie wraps up. The overall individual who is guilty for continuing Umbrella's shit is finally arrested, and it closes on Leon and Claire talking with the lady who was the brother's sister, and it kind of ends on a somber note, because I mean, you know, you have this character whose brother did these horrible things because of what happened, and the damage and the loss of Raccoon City, and it's good. It ties into the story. It has the characters from the games. It has the monsters from the games. And I think that Degeneration is just a really good Resident Evil movie. So if you're one of these people who's like, oh god, Paul's movies suck, check this one out. You might like it a little better. So we're going to talk about Damnation now. And Damnation, it's good. I don't think it's as good as Degeneration personally, but it's good. So, Damnation. The thing that is good about this movie is this time it doesn't really have any notions of duality and heroes. Duality. It doesn't have 2 fucking heroes. If you want to consider Ada, who does show up in this, a hero, then I guess it does. But it doesn't feel as bad as Degeneration did, with Claire basically being pushed off to the side. This time it stars Leon, and only Leon. And yes, Ada shows up, but she's not a hero. I never actually liked Ada. Personally, I think she's kind of a cunt. And if I were Leon, I would definitely bark up Claire's tree. Or maybe Ashley's. I always hated the ending to Resident Evil 4. Nah, Leon. When a woman offers you vagina, you fucking take it. Anywho, I like this one because it just stars Leon, and it doesn't have a problem with multiple heroes. It doesn't have a problem with someone not getting as much screen time as you would think. But the thing that I find really interesting about Damnation is its supporting cast. The supporting cast of Degeneration is a fucking wet blanket, personally. But I like the characters in Damnation. Now, again, I'm not sure entirely on names, but Leon quickly... let me set up the stage. Leon is infiltrating a city that's under siege by bioterror. And I know for a fact this one takes place after Resident Evil 4, because even Hunnigan speaks to him and he turns her the fuck off for the duration of the mission. But yeah, Damnation definitely takes place after Resident Evil 4, so I'm pretty sure Degeneration takes place before Resident Evil 4, because there's like no Plaga monsters whatsoever, and this one has Plaga monsters. Anywho, Damnation. He is infiltrating a city that is under siege. It's this third world country, and it's under the attack of bioterror, an actual bioterrorism. Like, there are fucking, you know, insurgents fighting alongside the monsters, trying to overthrow their government. But it's neat because the moment he gets into the city and he begins, you know, trying to search for his informant and things like that, he runs into these 2 characters, and I love both of these guys for different reasons. The first character is featured prominently on the box, and I will talk about him secondly. The other character isn't really featured anywhere, but he's just, I like him a lot. He'll probably annoy you, I don't know. People respond to things in different ways. But I like this character because he's just so entertaining to me. He's this pudgy dude who's, you know, he's obviously a terrorist with his friend or his brother. I can't tell if they're friends or brothers. I think they're friends. He's obviously a terrorist, but he doesn't really want to do any of this, and he loves America. That's all he ever talks about throughout the movie is America. He talks about, you know, the food and the music and the people and the movies and all this other cool shit. And he embodies to me what I would think a lot of people embody. They like, maybe they're not too crazy about America, but they know that America has a lot of cool shit. So, I mean, I just like his character. And, of course, spoiler, I was really saddened when he died, and he doesn't have a good death. Nobody in Resident Evil ever has a good death, but yeah, his head explodes and tentacles come out because he was infected. Anywho, it's actually a really fucked up scene. You'll see when you watch it. Anywho, Leon runs into these two characters, and this movie doesn't have what I would consider two acts. It's a very more flowing film with a lot of different locations and a lot of different things happening in these locations. And of course, you will cut between Leon and Ada. Ada is of course infiltrating this place, and she is trying to find a certain new type of bio-infection virus plaga thing. She's looking for a plaga, I do believe. But you know, you cut between the two different characters, and there's a lot of really interesting action scenes. There's a lot of different interesting things, but there's just not so much I can talk about within two different locations like Degeneration. And I don't want to go, you know, into all of the minute details. This one's a little bit more story focused. It's got a little bit more talking, but it's still really good, and there's still action, there's still monsters. One of the cool things is on the front, you can see there's a liquor. There are liquors in this, and it's really interesting. But let me talk about this other character real quick. This guy is actually controlling the liquors. He infects himself and he controls the liquors. That's what I mean when there's actual bioterrorism. There are terrorists controlling these fucking monsters and attacking people. It's really pretty interesting. But his character is different than the other guy's character. He's really pissed off, and he wants to overthrow the government because of all the injustice and all this. He's a very stoic, very serious character, while the other guy's a little bit goofy. And I just like them. I think that they're supporting characters, and they're really good supporting characters. I would think that the last supporting character would actually be the president lady of this third world nation, and she is just a mixed bag. She is very peculiar. You don't really think a whole lot about her up until later in the movie where she's talking with Ada and they get into a fight, and lo and behold, she is just as fucking good at Ada as like hand-to-hand fucking combat shit. She doesn't kick Ada's ass, but they're evenly fucking matched. And it's pretty neat because when Ada goes to try to escape the situation, they're inside of her presidential building. She basically pushes a button and the entire room starts going down this huge elevator into, you guessed it, a fucking underground facility, because there's always one. But yeah, the final act, or the final action segment of this movie is fucking awesome. Alright, so, you remember when I said that these were basically Resident Evil 2 movies, and the first movie has G? Guess what Damnation has? Does anybody know what the TOO variant tyrant is? Okay, how about Mr. X? If you played Resident Evil 2, then you know what Mr. X is. Mr. X is a tyrant. He is a mass-produced variant TOO tyrant. And this movie, it has the tyrant in it. And it's fucking cool. I talked about G. Well, the tyrants, I'll talk about them. They're humanoid. They're these massive humanoid monsters. And they have, you know, they have their own outfits and their own things, and they're literally called power inhibitors. That's basically canon now. Their outfits are power inhibitors because the T virus is really, really unstable, just like G more so, of course. But when tyrants mutate with the T virus, you know, they have like herniated organs. I've always heard people complain, oh, why make a bioweapon that has a herniated organ? Okay, number one, it's not their fault. They're dealing with fucking mutations and shit. Obviously, when they mutate, their muscle structure changes, bone structure changes, and it sometimes pushes their fucking organs out of their chest. It's obviously a great big Zelda style here, hit me, this spot is my weak spot thing, but that's the thing with it. But they have these things called power inhibitors, and the TOO variant usually looks very humanoid until its power inhibitor comes off. Usually in the game you do enough damage to it and it mutates, whatever. But in this final moment where Ada and Leon and the president lady and everybody's underground, this evil bitch, the president lady, six not one, but two TOO variant tyrants on Leon and the terrorist dude. At this time in the movie, my favorite little happy dude is dead. Makes me sad. I like that guy. She 6'2" tyrants on him. And this section is fucking cool because you have something that we've never seen in Resident Evil before. You have Leon, the badass, fighting the tyrants. You have the terrorist dude also helping fight the tyrants with fucking liquors. This dude is sicking liquors on a tyrant, and they don't do they slow him down, but they can't do shit. They're liquors. He just squishes their fucking heads and pounds them into flesh. But it's so fucking cool, the guy sending liquors after a tyrant. You have to see this action scene. YouTube it. I don't give a fuck. Watch it. And it spills out into the streets above eventually. And it's so cool because Leon... There's one part where this tyrant hits Leon. It would turn his organs into liquid shit. But it hits Leon and sends him flying across into a pillar. And I just can't comprehend how Leon's even alive after that shit. But, you know, his power level's pretty high. But it's so cool seeing this fight spill out into the city above, and they finally are able to try to stop the tyrant. They hit him with a fucking tanker truck. I think I can't remember. I think Leon reloads his rifle, which I'd love to see Leon with this particular rifle in any game. You know, Revelations 3, whatever. He shoots the tyrant while it's basically got its fist rammed through a liquor's head and stuck into an oil truck. And he shoots the truck and explodes it. And they think they killed the tyrant, but all they did was break its power inhibitor, and it fucking mutates. And it doesn't have any herniated organs, because the mass-produced TOO variant is a little bit more sophisticated than things like the Proto-Tyrant and the Tyrant from Resident Evil 1 and even Nemesis. They're very more controlled. But it mutates, and it turns into this big, hulking, giant monster even bigger than it was before. And, you know, it starts fighting Leon some more. And the coolest thing is, you know, just the fight scenes. Oh, the fight scenes. They literally use a tank to kill this thing. And then, of course, you find out that the other tyrant has made its way up to the surface. And then another tyrant shows up. So the bitch literally sicked 3 of them on him at once. But the third one was, I don't know, doing his taxes for a minute or something. But it's just so fucking cool. And, of course, it ends with, you know, Leon finally getting some backup in the form of jets that literally rain death upon the tyrants and turn them into liquid shit again. And, by the end of the movie, you know, Ada has escaped with her plaga, and the presidential lady is, like, literally going to jail forever because she's actually a corrupt piece of shit using Umbrella's tech to make bioweapons, because they always are. And, of course, Leon, you know, he goes off to do some more adventure. But, yeah, both of these movies are well worth watching for their action, for their horror, for their character, and for the simple fact that they stick to the Resident Evil mythos. It's very cool. But last but not least, why am I even talking about these movies? I'm talking about these movies because they've announced Resident Evil Vendetta. If you haven't seen a trailer for Vendetta, I'll try to put the trailer link in the description so you can go watch it. Vendetta is going to have Leon again, of course, because he's been very successful in these movies, but it's also going to have fucking Chris boulder punching Redfield. And I've heard people complain that Chris looks weird in the launch trailer. Well, not the launch trailer, the first trailer we've gotten. Guys, you got to remember, these are Japanese developed like things. They're made in Japan. I can only imagine that there's some different things that happen between translation and distribution. And I'm sure that, you know, Chris looks Asian. He looks very Asian for the first time around. And, you know, he looks different in different things, you know, like right there, you know, I have one of these, judge me. Surely they change the way his face looks and change the way a lot of the characters look when they bring those things over to Western audiences. And that's not a problem. That's not a problem at all. And I don't have a problem with the way he looks. The thing I'm worried about with Vendetta is that you have 2 heroes again. You've got Leon and Chris. So, are they going to be evenly split through the movie? Is somebody going to get more screen time than the other? Is somebody going to have a shitty time? What's going to happen with these characters? The interesting thing is, though, it looks like they're going back to the roots. I hate saying that now because it reminds me of RE7. They're going back to the roots. You know, Chris, you know, he has a squad, which I like that Chris has squads now because he is a soldier. I think Resident Evil 5 would have been a lot better if either Sheva didn't exist and there was no co-op, or if they had sent Chris in with a squad and you could have like 4-player co-op. That would have been fucking cool to me. Remake Resident Evil 5, give Chris a squad, throw Sheva the fuck out, and give me like squad-based combat in a Resident Evil. That'd be cool to me. But, you know, there's Chris, his squad. There is some sort of spooky mansion and a mysterious, you know, robed figure. Like it looks like he has a white lab coat to me, but you know that they're going back, and this is supposed to bridge. I've heard. I don't know if this is true. It's supposed to bridge Resident Evil 6 with Resident Evil 7, and I don't like what 7's doing, but I'll still watch this because it's a Resident Evil movie that isn't made by Anderson, and if it's as good as these, then I want to see it, because Resident Evil makes my dick hard. So, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Be sure to stay tuned, because I'm going to be doing another video right after this one, talking about some things I love from Resident Evil. And, yes, again, Omar, your video, it's coming. Be giddy. But, I love the Resident Evil movies that aren't made by Anderson, and I think you will too. If you've never heard of them or never watched them, then I hope you didn't watch this entire fucking video. Go watch them. They're awesome. They're great. I have both of them. And when Vendetta comes out, I'll buy that one too. Thanks for watching. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel. One more video, possibly two. I don't know. Drop some likes. Maybe drop some dislikes. You know, do whatever you want to do. It's your world. I'm just living in it. Thanks for watching, guys.